Hi, are you dealing with an adult stepchild that has cut off from your partner, their parent? I post once a week, so subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell and I'll let you know every time I post. If you have an adult stepchild who is distant and doesn't associate with you, maybe you don't even see them at all, it can be extremely distressing, not only for you as a step-parent, but also and particularly for your partner, the parent to that adult child. But what can one do about it when it happens? Well, the first thing you should know is it's not that uncommon. I have heard huge numbers of stories, and I'm sure you have too, about adult children breaking contact with their parents. The other thing you should know is that if you Google separation from your parents or toxic parents or something of that nature, there are huge numbers of people who have cut off from their parents. There are whole groups, support groups, networks, everything on the internet. It's surprising to see how many and how prolific the I've cut off from my family approach to things are. It's not that uncommon. So that still leaves you with the problem of what to do about it. But let us first, just for a moment, pause and think what could be the cause of it. There are two strands to this. Sometimes it happens through something that's called parent alienation, which is when normally happens when a couple split and one or other of the couple adopt their child and against their other parent. So they withdraw love unless the child agrees to diss their other parent like they do. So they give love in reward for loyalty to them as a parent against the other parent. It is a very sad set of events, and it is, again, not that uncommon. It is a condition. Parent alienation is a thing that's known and talked about. And the other strand is when an adult will cut off from their parents as a form of projection, which is they project their difficulty to somewhere else because life is tough, and if you're not prepared to take responsibility yourself, then you can blame somebody else for the problem. And by projecting the blame onto somebody else, you can relinquish the pain or the hurt from having to admit that you are responsible for your life. And so therefore, quite often, a young person will project their blame or the things that go wrong in their life or blame the other people for what's gone wrong in their life and cut off a parent as a result of that. Now, there may be some validity in it. I mean, if parents separate in the middle of somebody's GCSEs or A-levels and then the child does very badly and doesn't manage to get to university, the child might grow up and say, well, I didn't go to university because of my parents' divorce and that was my father's fault, and blame the father. And so that it isn't as though there isn't any validity in it. It's just sometimes, but that the child, for whatever reason, grows up blaming their parents for what went wrong. And in fact, that's not an uncommon scenario in even very healthy families, very healthy growing up environments where, the answer is to all your problems, blame your parents. But you've got to grow through that. And often it takes a long time for a young person to grow through that. It can take decades. And if you're stuck in a situation where the adult is in that projected blame scenario and you or your partner is being blamed for whatever's gone wrong in this person's life, it can mean a cut-off, and it can take a very long time to sort out. Now, I'm sure those are not the only reasons why young adults will decide to cut off from their parents, but those are two quite large ones. And so there again, we're back to the original issue is, what can you do about it? Well, the answer to that question is actually very little. If what your goal is to restore the relationship as you would like it, to be friendly, to see each other, to have a normal parent-child relationship, to have good family relations. This is tricky because in order to have a relationship with somebody else, it has to be two-way. So by definition, a relationship isn't just you with them. They have to agree to and participate in the them to you bit of the relationship. Without that agreement, then you don't have a relationship. So what can you do about that? Well, there are 4 things that I would recommend. The first thing would be to really pull back and say, the situation is as it is. You can't affect change on that relationship without their consent. So the pullback situation is to look after yourself and have a life. Get on with your life. Fulfill your life. You only have one life, and this is it. Don't squander it, hoping for something else to happen. You've got to nurture what you've got and be strong, be fulfilled as you can be, and follow your own interests and lead your life. The healthier you are in your own life, the more attractive you are to them coming and joining you. If you're morose and depressed and live a solitary life and nothing pleases you, then they won't be encouraged to come back and join you. But if, when they do make contact, you're fine, you're living a good life, you've got what you want in other areas, you're making it as good as possible, then you're attractive. They can come and join you. They can participate in your life when they come back. So number 1 is really nurture yourself and look after yourself. Keep yourself as good as you possibly can be. Number 2 is you can't generate a relationship without their consent. But people do things like create memory boxes. They keep relevant photographs, relevant memories of certain days. They even do things like buy birthday presents for their missing child and put them in the trunk. And so one day when the child may or may not come back, they have a memory of that birthday even though they never received the gift at the time. Birthday cards, letters, important events, it's all kept in this memory trunk. So if they do come back to you or relations are re-established, then not everything was lost for that period of time that you had no contact. It's an idea. Another thing that I would suggest is when you are thinking about how you can or would like to reconnect with them, think about the relationship from their point of view and see if you can't think of things that would help them in their lives at the moment. You know, in our lives, we've always got things that people could help us with at the moment. And if you can think about them and what they would most like at the moment, you might be able to plug a few gaps and build a relationship going forward on what their needs are now. I mean, if they've got pets, they may want somebody to pet sit while they go on holiday. So if they've got young children, you could maybe help out with childcare or offer that. If they may need help, I don't know, with the gardening, you could help them with that, or professionally, I don't know what industry you're involved in, but maybe something professional, you could help them with that. Go at the relationship by building it on what would be helpful to them, and then you can build a relationship going forward, not based on the past, from there, rather than expect it to be, well, you come to lunch with us one Sunday and then we'll come to lunch with you in 3 months' time on a Sunday. Think about what would be helpful for them and plug that gap. You may find that by being useful, you can rebuild the relationship quicker than just as if it was 50-50 and an equal relationship, that you're expecting something back from them in return from something from you. And the final thing is that this is about them and their growing up. Them not just becoming adults, but becoming more mature as people. And so this can take, as I've said before, a long time, decades. It is a devastating realization when you, as an adult child, realize that you've been blaming somebody else in your life for something that actually was never really their fault, or that they've been put up to it. You've only got to read literature about parent alienation to know that children who've grown up in an alienated environment can take 30, 40 years to recognise that they made a mistake and that the parent that they think they love was actually the one that turned them against the one who has loved them all the time on a more equal basis and not requiring anything from them in return. And that's a devastating discovery to make. But the final thing I'd say is, don't take it personally and be ready for re-engagement if and when it comes. And so always keeping that door open is an incredibly useful and helpful, and may get that child to reconnect. If you say, well, we're going to write one final letter and that's it, we're not going to make any further effort to communicate with them, then you are closing the door from your end. And what I'm saying to you is that this is a long process. It's a very difficult journey for a young person to do. And if the adult, the parent, is open and keeps on trying to keep that door open, you know, that business about, shall I send one more Happy Christmas text Or shall I just forget it? Just go that little extra all the time to show you're there, you're willing, you're open. But I must be honest with you. This depends on them. You can't initiate it. I mean, you can initiate, but you can't, by right, expect them to have a relationship with you. They are entitled, or they can, shall we say, cut off from you. People do. And it may be forever. And that's tragic. There's only so much you can do, but do what you can. We run workshops, sessions, we write booklets. And you can find links to our social media and website in the description box below.